Hey, what's up out there in internet land? Online Trainer Academy, OTA students, graduates, PTDC members, and all the affiliates. We've got a brilliant live session for you today. It's giving me deja vu for some reason. I can't shake the feeling that I've done this before. We'll get into that in a second. But before we get started with anything today, I want to get you guys on those keyboards because what I need you to do is I need you to log in and tell us where you're viewing from. If you do that, we're going to give you an opportunity to win the box set for the highly wealthy online trainer. And you want that box set. So please go and let us know where you're tuning in from, city, state, country, if necessary. We want to hear about it. Today, we've got a guest that I've met one time before. Unfortunately, a few days ago, we had a technical issue when we were going over Hayley's information. Hayley's with us today, Hayley Earley. And the information was so good. We just could not deprive Hayley of the opportunity to share some of it with you, nor did we want to deprive you guys of getting information. One quick point though, I live in an apartment community, a high-rise apartment community here in the city of Charlotte, North Carolina. And unfortunately, guys, the building is being tested for our alarm systems for fire. It's absolutely out of my control. I apologize if we get a high-pitched noise. That's not my voice. That's actually a fire alarm, although it can be easy to confuse the two. But without further ado, let's bring Hayley Earley in. Hayley, welcome back. Thank you so much for coming back to share information with us because you've got a brilliant topic. What does success look like to you? But fill the people in on who you are, Hayley, and sort of your introduction to fitness and wellness.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys for having me again. And hello to all who may have seen part of the interview from a few days ago. So again, my name is Hayley Earley. I've been in the fitness industry a little over 12 years. And I originally started out, essentially, I've always been active and involved in sports. I went into college with that same mentality that was something that I wanted to continue, but wasn't sure exactly where and how I would do that. But I played soccer for the university that I attended and had to attend a strength and conditioning program myself. And that's where I absolutely fell in love with lifting and the whole process, and went to my strength coach and said, okay, tell me what I need to do to get to where you're at. So my original intention was to work with athletes in a sport-specific setting, more than likely in a college setting. Went through schooling and graduated. I was certified through the NSCA, actually sat for my test before graduation and passed, so was excited to get rolling. And then God had other plans for me and brought me to Idaho Falls, Idaho, from Las Vegas, Nevada. Very large change for me, but was definitely a good one. And the college setting was primarily taken care of around here and already had coaches in place. And so before I left Las Vegas, I had the opportunity to work with a local girls high school basketball team. And I absolutely fell in love with that age group. They still had the passion and drive and desire to get to college. And I just enjoyed working with them. And when I moved here, that was essentially the background that the facility that picked me up was aiming for, was the middle school and high school athletes and prepping them for college level athletics. So I was extremely excited about that. However, once I got into the business side, which I had no experience in business whatsoever, I realized that the demographic and some other things about the area were not going to allow that business to survive strictly off of youth athletes. And so the facility we were in happened to be attached to a hospital. It was more of a studio style setting. We were on the second floor of a physical therapy department. And so I was like, we've got to open this up more. We've got to open it up to general public, do some personal training. So I had an entire hospital to market to. At that point in time, it was only about 300 employees, and now I think it's over 1,200. So it's definitely grown. But 10 years later, I was still there. The supervisor of the facility, it grew from me to me plus 5. And we were essentially more of a corporate wellness program at that point, although I still had a big chunk of high school athletes and middle school athletes. So I worked with both populations. And then I got pregnant with my first son, and my intention was to leave on maternity leave for 3 months and return to my full-time client load schedule, to my supervisor duties. And then my husband and I found out he was selected for an opportunity that would allow us to go active duty in the military for a year. And I was 100% on board. And again, I think that's where God stepped in and had other plans for me, because my husband was like, really? Are you sure you're okay with this? You realize that you would be leaving the career that you just poured 10 years of your life into, and you're willing to walk away from that for a year? So I said yes, but also talked to my hospital about staying on as a PRN status as opposed to full-time, because I was actually employed by the hospital. I was not an independent contractor. And staying on as PRN while we were gone for that year, and then possibly coming back to work for them when we returned back home after our tour. And they agreed and were super excited about it. And then 2 months after we left, I got the phone call that they were going to be shutting down our program completely. And I played around and toyed around with the idea of going online for a couple years, but I was so, I wouldn't say burnt out in the job itself. I was burnt out on the schedule that I had. And I was so overwhelmed with all of my duties that I just didn't have the headspace to understand how to go online. And I felt like the only way to do that was to start from the bottom up and recreate the wheel, but I didn't even know what that wheel looked like. And so when I got that notice, I was like, okay, well, this is my opportunity to maybe look at the online. And that was in October. November, OTA opened for its new class, essentially. And I jumped on it. Yes, okay, we're just going to do this. And I didn't even actually start the material until January of 2018. But I looked at the material and said, hey, maybe this is it. Maybe this is what I need to go that direction. But even then, I still had the full wheel picture in my mind. And then I got started and was so blown away by how simple they made it. And yes, there's a lot of complexity that can be involved in online training, but you don't have to go that complex to get started. And so I was thrilled with that. And we ended up moving back home in August of 18. And I launched in September of 18 and kind of went running with everything. And then 4 months in, I found out I was pregnant again and have been borderline hyperemesis sick since then. I just hit my third trimester a few weeks ago, and I'm finally starting to get some relief from the nausea. So it really, that's kind of a quick layout of what got me involved and brought me to where I'm at. And I couldn't imagine going back in person right now with a toddler at home, with my husband's rotating shift work schedule, also on top of military duty schedule, and being pregnant and sick. And this has just allowed me such an amazing opportunity to stay involved in the field that I love and the passion that I have for my clients, but being able to work around my family and not put my son in daycare for 15 hours a day or, something like that. So it really has been a true blessing and so much easier to start off than I ever anticipated.
Absolutely. So I'm doing the math in my head, and first of all, I was told there'd be no math on this live session. But I'm doing the math in my head, and I'm thinking, if you've got a 2-year-old and you went through OTA in 18, and that was a year ago, then prior to OTA, you were working in person as you were carrying a child. What's the difference? Highlight the contrast for us between the first pregnancy, working in person, and what this one is like post OTA. What's been the difference between the two?
That's a fantastic question because it is drastically different in a good way, I think. When I was in person, I was scheduled more often than not with at least 30 client hours a week. If not a little bit more. It doesn't mean that obviously all of them showed up all the time, but I still average in person seeing clients at least 25 hours a week. And then I also had my supervisor duties where I oversaw our facility, our 5 other trainers, making sure that they were taken care of. And so a lot of it went into that. But I was working Monday through Friday. Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays were typically straight shifts. They were different hours. Usually Monday, Wednesday was like 11 to 8. Fridays were 6 to 2. Tuesdays and Thursdays were my fun split shifts. For all of you in the field, I'm sure you've worked at least a handful of those at some point in time. I was typically starting with clients at 5 a.m. I would go till about 11-ish, and then I would take a break in the middle of the day and go back from 4 to 8 at night. And our facility was a great facility. However, it did not have restrooms on our floor. We had to go downstairs into the physical therapy department to use the restroom. So for someone who was actually even sicker in my first pregnancy than I had been in this one, I had strategically placed trash cans around the gym that were very close to the stairwells. I won't go into further detail, but you can get the picture from there. Talk about awkward. Luckily, my clients were very understanding and they were very empathetic with me. But I also know that as a personal trainer, I had a unique situation where I was employed by the hospital. So luckily, I had paid time off that had accrued over the 10 years I had been working there. And so I could take days off when I had it really bad, or add a couple hours if I had clients, cancel and I didn't want to reschedule because I was just feeling so horrible. And so that was a huge blessing for me, but I know that not a lot of people in the field have that opportunity. And although that helped take care of me, I still didn't feel like my clients were being taken care of as well as I normally would take care of them, because I couldn't always be there the way that I wanted to be, whether it was mentally, even though I was physically there, or couldn't physically be there because I was so sick. And that was really difficult for me. And my clients were troopers, but it took a toll on them as well. And that's difficult when you're in person and trying to juggle that. And now fast forward to this pregnancy, and I am able to work my schedule around my family. So, if I'm having a rough night, sometimes I go to bed right when I put my little down, and I let him wake me up, and I'll, hammer out work for 2.5 hours while he naps in the middle of the day. If my husband, with his rotating schedule, even though it's crazy, I know for the most part in advance when he is off. So if I do have live client calls, I'll schedule them at least on my calendar on days that I know he's going to be off, so that I have help with my little one, or I'll schedule them late in the evening after my son goes to bed. If I'm having a rough day, I can nap when my little one naps. I'm so thankful he's a good sleeper and that he still naps. So it has definitely allowed me the opportunity to stay in contact with my clients and still make sure that they're getting the level of care that I would want for them to have without physically needing to be there, and working with a platform that already has exercise videos recorded that I can choose what I want for them. And I don't have to be the one demonstrating, and I can literally be laying in bed on my laptop, or to be honest, I can be on my phone and picking the exercises and what I need for them and what I want for them. And is it a battle mentally sometimes when I'm still that sick? Yes, but I'm still able to be there and take care of my clients. And the check-ins that I can put in place on the platform that I'm using, and just the different ways I can check in with them on times that work on their schedule, times that work for me. They can get back to me when works best for them. being in a hospital setting and working with a lot of hospital employees, especially those in surgical staff, or around fourth quarter. For any of you out there that are nurses and doctors, fourth quarter is insane, and constantly having clients cancel because they were scheduled for a 12-hour shift, but this surgery went wrong or this surgery went long and they're in there for 16 hours and it runs right through their schedule or their appointment with you. And so just the convenience, the scheduling, being able to take care of myself and my newly growing daughter has been a very, very drastic difference between the first two. And honestly, I think it is one of the reasons why this pregnancy has become easier than my first one was.
That makes total sense. So talk to us a little bit about your involvement with your clients. Do you feel like when you were training in person, even though you were physically there, that you were sort of less involved in the life of your clients? Do you feel like because you're able to interact with them a bit more, like phone calls and things like that, do you feel actually more involved with clients now than when you had them in person?
To some extent, yes, I do. Even clients that I saw 3-4 days a week, when you're scheduled for a workout, they're there for a workout. And sometimes, at least for me as an in-person trainer, I'd get that anxiety if I felt like I needed to, if I was recognizing some language that they were using that was like, hey, maybe your workout is not a good choice today. Maybe, like, do we need to sit and strategize about some other things? Some clients would be okay with that, and others would still want to push through a workout, even though I didn't feel that it was probably the best choice for them that day. And then sometimes they say that they want to troubleshoot, but then they're like, okay, well, are we still going to get a workout in? But I only have so much time. And then taking on that large of a load of clients, which was great for me on a revenue and income stream, but, you know, also interacting with all of those clients outside of the gym via text or check-ins, just too much. And so most of it was done strictly in the gym. And sometimes I felt like I was missing out on things, or we were trying to catch up on things while we were working out. And that doesn't always work because then they're not paying attention, or, you know, it gets complicated. And here, if they send me a Marco Polo video, I can watch it. I have time to retain what it is that they're talking about. I actually have some time to pick apart what they're saying and maybe what they actually mean. And then later that evening when my son's asleep, I can reply, and I can reply with empathy and actually being able to wrap my head around what is probably going to be the best path for them and where we should go, as opposed to just going with the answer off the top of my head because we're short on time and I've got a client that's warming up for their next session and I'm back to back to back. And it just allows me to really feel like I can pour more into them in the ways that they need, not the ways that they think they need or I think they need, but what actually they need at that time. And being able to recognize that, having the headspace to recognize what they need has been huge. So yes, I definitely think that there is a big difference. But my client load is also fairly small right now, and I'm okay with that. And I love that I get to pour into them that way and still have that purpose and satisfaction as a trainer, even though I'm at home and I'm not in, you know, that in-person setting right now.
Absolutely. You know, we've chatted about this before, obviously, but we're in a lot of the same groups here. We're in the PTDC group. We're on the page. We're in the Online Trainers Unite group, and we see a lot of angst about some people questioning what's the validity of training a person online. Why? I saw one question I think last week that simply said, "Why would anybody pay for an online trainer? I just don't get it." When the reality is, and I found this too, you know, when you've got back-to-back schedule, you got a 1 o'clock, then the 2 o'clock comes in, and then 3 o'clock comes in. Like, there's no real interaction there. Like you said, you're hitting the training, and that's what they pay for. That's what they expect. But I think if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying that in a lot of ways, we can be more of an impression on that client, give more care, more consideration, take our time and really educate and build that relationship just by the simple fact that there are mechanics put in, especially through OTA, to keep the communication lines open.
Yes, absolutely agreed. Granted, there is still those that need that in-person accountability. And unfortunately, at this point, I just get to say, I'm so sorry, I'm not the trainer for you at this time, and I refer them to other people in my area. But yes, there's a trade-off. And I struggled with that a lot in the beginning of even trying to understand how you go online. And I love that the OTA covers that transition of what does this look like? One, if it were easy, because thank you, I need that. And two, what does this look like because you've been in person before? How do you make that transition? What things do you need to be aware of? What do you need to proactively be thinking about in order to still make sure that your clients are taken care of? And that was huge for me because that was a huge stumbling block before I started OTA, was like, how do I let that go? How do I let go of seeing them, of correcting their technique, of making sure that they're taken care of? And it definitely laid it out in a way that made so much sense and has been easier to implement than I imagined.
And that's a great segue, because what I wanted to talk about with you next is, I know that I call them processes. I know that you don't use systems I think you call yours rituals, if I'm not mistaken. But
just habits.
just habits. Clue us in on some of your daily rituals that really allows your business to tick online. Like, share some of that information with us.
Really, it's been super simple, and I haven't even dove into probably the meat of everything. But OTA gives you the homework assignment of starting with your new daily ritual of reaching out and connecting with 5 people on social media every day. And that's where I started. And from there, getting comfortable with sharing on social media was a big leap for me, because I didn't want to feel like I was exposing my entire life to the world every day. And actually, it really isn't that, although sometimes it can be perceived that way. But really, those two things of reaching out, connecting, and creating or reestablishing relationships with people, and then sharing my story and being genuine and relatable with me, because that's the reason people are coming to me, is because they either relate to me in some way or another. They appreciate something about the way that I speak or the way that I talk or act, my morals, they're connecting with me. And that was the biggest thing that I had to learn, was I'm not in competition with anybody else. Oh, and that's so hard. Even when I say that out loud, there's still that competitive edge in me that creeps up. But no, I have to be me. I can't be anybody else. I can't pretend to be anybody else. And genuinely caring about people, even if they're not working with you. And I mentioned getting sick through this pregnancy, and I have not been consistent posting on social media since I've been sick. But I've gained 2 new clients since then, because they saw everything that I was doing leading up to the point of getting sick. And granted, they weren't ready at that time, but I was on the top of their mind when they were ready, because of just literally those 2 things of posting consistently, sharing my story, creating value, and connecting with them. They came to me. They're like, hey, I know you're sick right now, but can you help me? And I was absolutely willing to take them on, because I knew what my limit was. And so I know that there's so much more of OT that I'm not utilizing yet, but I'm not there yet. I'm not ready for that yet. But I'm so thankful to know that I have it. I have my trusty textbook. I have a fantastic 10-year money back guarantee. The fact that John Goodman cares enough about us to any new updated material goes into our student portal. Like, I don't know any other certification that I've ever had or been a part of that has done that. Whenever new material comes out, you have to repurchase it all. And the fact that it is there waiting for me, ready when I'm ready to start with more of those steps, it will be there. And that was hands down like my sold point, money worth it right there.
100%. You know, yesterday we had a different live session, obviously, and we spoke to an OTA grad, and sort of the connotation, the context of his story was like, there's no wrong way to do this for the other people, because there are other OTA grads or just trainers out there who are maybe in a situation similar to yours where the income is not quite as necessary. Like the drive isn't to be a six-figure trainer, and the time that you have has to be partitioned in a way that it can be useful. Like this isn't an all day, all night thing for you, but speak to sort of the fact that this is a way. There's not one way, but this is a way for the person out there who says, I've only got 4 or 5 hours to get dedicate to this today, or I'm not necessarily trying to set myself up to quote unquote be breadwinner, et cetera, et cetera. Speak to that a little bit. How you find purpose in all this.
Well, and I'm very grateful that we do not need my income in order to do this. And so, yes, my urgency is not what it needs to be, maybe for some other people who need to be the sole income provider or make sure that it's paying the bills, because I'm not in that situation. But honestly, if I didn't have this outlet, I wouldn't be working at all right now. And so my priorities since having a child and becoming a mom have completely switched. And it's more important for me, and the decision between my husband and I, that it was more important for me to stay home and raise our son than it was to kill myself in a 40 to 60, depending on the week, hour position, and even part-time. I wanted to have the flexibility that if my son was sick, that I didn't have to bail on clients in order to take care of my son. I didn't want to make that choice. And he was 100% on board with that. And so for me, I'm very thankful that we're in that situation. But because I have this outlet and this avenue of online training, I can still feel a little bit of purpose outside of being a mom. And I can still, we were talking a little bit earlier, I had a client call last night that just lit me up. I was so grinning ear to ear, excited when we got off the phone. It filled something in my heart that is such a passion for me, that if I didn't have the opportunity to be involved this way, that I wouldn't have it at all right now. And I'm just so thankful for that. So for those that are out there that are like, well, I only have this little bit of time, I maybe spend 5 hours a week in my business right now, just depending on what I have going on with my clients and if I have anybody new coming on an onboarding process and stuff. But that's really all I'm spending right now. And it works for me, and I'm thankful for that. I'm covering my expenses. I'm making a few hundred to $1,000 a month. I've been able to help send some extra payments to our mortgage, like just little things here and there. I'm covering my continuing education costs that come up each year. Just the little things that doesn't have to come out of our family budget that I can work towards and that I can have and use in that regard. And it's been fantastic. It really has. And the drive and that urgency to be a six-figure trainer, I'm not going to lie, I've had that, like, oh, I need to be that person. I need to be that person. And then I get worked up and I'm like, wait a second, where am I at in my life and in my world? And that is not a priority to me right now. Although who doesn't want to make six figures? Realistically, but I'm not willing to put in that kind of time and work right now. to sacrifice the time with my family. That's not where I'm at in my life, and I'm 100% okay with that. But so thankful that I have what I have in order to be able to, to still tap into that excitement and the cheesy grin.
And that's awesome, because there's purpose in that, guys. Out there in OTA land, every goal is reasonable, but you don't have to be the person in the extra tight gray joggers and the triple extra small shirt in front of the rented probably Lamborghini. Like, that's not the only business model for online training, although it is the way. It's a way. It's not necessarily the way. And that pushes me right into another question, because I got to know this, because you have a family. You've got one on the way, one here. You've got what sounds like an awesome husband, and what's his reaction to the way you used to do your business versus something like you being lit up over a client? Like, how does he perceive your joy in this business, post OTA?
He has mentioned multiple times that, for example, the client that I got off the phone with last night, I came up and he saw my cheesy grin and he's like, "I'm guessing the call went well." I said, "Yes, it did," and gave some, bare minimum explanation of kind of how it went. And he was like, "That right there is absolutely worth it to me." He goes, "To see you happy and excited and that you're helping people, hands down, absolutely worth it. But if you ever start to get to the point where you are overwhelmed and stressed out and frustrated, or just running your anxiety through the roof of, I need to do more, I need to do more, I need to do more, and that is impacting your relationship within our family because you're stressed about, well, I need to do this for clients, but I want to pay attention to my son, or I'm not giving you, my husband, enough attention." He's like, "If it starts to get in that," he goes, "that's not worth it to me. It's absolutely not."
And was that his experience with your sort of first training life as a professional?
I'm not exactly sure what his outlook was, but he knew me before, obviously, I got pregnant. And that was just my life. That's what it was. There was no, I don't think either one of us really realized that there was an option like this that was available that would allow me that flexibility, but still that purpose and that excitement of working with clients. It was just kind of like, well, this is the job that Hayley has done for the last 10 years. This is what she's poured everything into. Like, he wasn't going to ask me to step away from that. He's a very supportive husband, but he was also, I think he's definitely very excited now, and has said multiple times, especially with our transition back home and his crazy schedule, he goes, "I'm so thankful that you are home with our son." He goes, "With my schedule these past 2 weeks, how would we have done it?" And I'm like, "I don't know." I really wasn't sure. And so there's been some situations like that have come up since we've been home. And he has just expressed such genuine gratefulness that I'm able to stay home. But he loves seeing my little cheesy grin as I come up from my office downstairs, and, he can tell that it went well. So, he would have never have asked me to step away from my job, but I definitely think that he's very grateful for this opportunity as well.
I love it. I love it. We're about 5 minutes over time, but that's all right, because we only have 5 total minutes the last time we talked. But I got it. So it's the inverse of last time. So we gave you only 5 last time. We give you extra 5 this time. I've got to ask this last question because it ties right back into your overall theme of success not being strictly a numbers game, and that question is, simply put, for the context of your life, and to give others permission to draw their own context for this question. What does success look like for you? And by that definition, do you feel successful?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I still, that competitive nature in me and that second guessing and perfectionist personality that I have still sometimes second guesses like, should I be doing more? But to really feel like I'm taking care of the current clients that I have, being able to take care of my body during this transition of having a second kiddo and being sick, and the transition that's going to come when second kiddo arrives, but still fulfilling that passion and getting that excitement, and helping my clients and just hearing and seeing their progress. Absolutely, hands down, I would consider my business successful.
Awesome. I love it. Guys, you heard it here first. Hayley, thanks so much for coming back, giving us another shot at this. Man, we really needed that info. For all you guys out there in internet land, if you came back to watch the replay of this live session, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And these will again eventually get bounced down to a podcast. So if you're listening to that podcast at some point in the future in your flying car, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Hayley, where can the people find you, my friend? The people need to reach out to you.
I'm primarily on Facebook, a little bit of Instagram. I'll go ahead and go back into the feed for this video, and I'll post a couple links and my email address and how you can reach me. I love connecting with other fitness professionals. I'm still in the baby steps of OTA in my business, but I'm happy to help and guide in any way that I can, or answer questions along the way, or just connect with other fellow fitness professionals. So I look forward to connecting with those who want. And thank you guys so much again for considering to redo the whole interview. And thank you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Guys, we'll check in with you tomorrow. We've got another live session coming up. Until then, do your thing, guys. There's no wrong way to do this. And there are multiple levels of success as proven out by Hayley Earley. Hayley, thanks again so much. And we'll talk again soon, my friend. All right?
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Absolutely.